Good morning, everybody. It is January 3rd, 2023. Welcome to a hot, fresh new year with your same old hosts, Tim and Tim. We haven't changed much, but this year is going to change a lot. What's up, Tim?
New
How you
year,
doing,
New Year, same old bums doing
man?
doing a show on Tuesdays.
Yeah, new jokes maybe? I don't know. We'll try to spice it up a little bit here.
I got to work on some new material. I do.
Hey, maybe ChatGPT can write you some new material, some new
Ooh, yeah. Like
punchlines.
maybe I'll say write dry jokes. See what it
Ooh,
does.
ooh.
Yeah.
Write jokes with a little bit of English humor. Anyways, how was your holidays? Thanks for everybody joining in. But Tim, how was your holidays? I know you were up in New York City. How was that?
Crowded.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't
It's
change.
a it's always fun when you're like, okay, hey, we're gonna grab an Uber because we're done walking. We've already walked like 10 miles today, so we're gonna grab an Uber, but we need to walk like 4 blocks away from the hotel to grab one because
Yeah,
hey, let's grab one right here and then let's sit in that traffic right there for 30 minutes.
yeah, no thanks.
Yeah, no, it's no, overall it was good. My daughter loves Broadway plays, so that was our Christmas gift to her. And man, I'm always appreciative when, a 14 or 15-year-old says, I'd rather go see a play or go travel somewhere than, get something, right?
Hmm.
Some sort of material item. So I can't complain about that.
Hey,
For sure.
I'm going to toot your horn here, but I'd say kudos to you for being a good parent.
Oh, well, thanks.
Ah,
I don't think she'd say that, but
she probably doesn't see it that way, but I think you instilled some good morals.
yeah, especially since we literally it's funny that we're having this show today, and guys, this wasn't planned. But last night, I speaking of being a good parent, right? We sat down and had a goal conversation with my daughter.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, because things change. She's really bad about she'll state things, and I think we're all guilty of this, right? She'll state things that she wants, but not take action or do things to get her there, right? Like, hey, I want to take piano lessons after soccer. And then July rolls around and it's like, well, what about those piano lessons? Oh, I need to look up where to go do that, right?
yeah, yeah.
That
Yeah,
kind of thing.
that perfect segue into this week's show. Obviously, I hope all of you got a little chuckle out of my little description there of the chopped line being down the street and the gyms are bustling. Surprisingly, when I was there, in January I like to go to the gym between 3 and 4 o'clock, and 4:30 because most people are not there. So there was only like 4 people in the gym, so I was really excited about that. But the gyms are bustling. The chopped line is down the street because everyone's getting healthy and eating salads and things like that. And at the end of the day, I love setting goals and targets, and yeah, I think it's really important to make sure that you're staying on the straight and narrow by setting goals and writing them down specifically on what you want to achieve in the year. And writing them down for the year is great, but at the end of the day, like you can look at something and say hindsight's 2020 and go back and look at your goals and say you did or didn't accomplish them. But how do you make sure you stay straight on those paths during the year, during the course? And the easiest way is to separate those yearly goals into 30, 60, and 90-day goals, right? You want to have these check marks, you want to have these little wins and these successes to know that you're staying on the on the right path. And it also gives you an opportunity to readjust, pivot, look at things differently and say, hey, this isn't working, this is working. I set this goal, I'm not even close to it, so I'm going to make sure I focus a little bit more on it, and so et cetera and so forth. Use it as a tool so that you can reevaluate your process or your progress. So Tim and I, when I was in Charlotte visiting my in-laws, Tim and I, we met up and we sat at a coffee shop again. That seems to be our MO for like 4 hours. Funny story, when Tim and I first met, we met at a coffee shop and sat there for like 4 hours. And then we ended up going out to dinner with the wives, and it was great. And it was good. It's really helpful when two people get in the same room and you're just talking about things. And the agenda is to set the goals, but how you get there is more of an organic process of kind of talking through problems, talking about what worked, what didn't work, what you liked, what you don't want, identifying the things that were good for you and were bad for you during the year help you identify what your goals are going to be for the following year. Would you agree with that, Tim?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's always the net new goals, right? And I always find that those are probably easy. Like I'm gonna go do something I've never done before. So you just set that goal and figure out a path towards it. But I think the harder ones tend to be a little bit more of like, what was my goal last year? How did did I make it or miss it? And if I missed it, what am I gonna do this year to to accomplish it? Right. And
Hmm.
I find those a little bit, I don't think harder is the right word. I find them a little bit more difficult just because they require a little more analysis, a little more reflection, right? Um, but it's well worth it. I think when Tim and I sat down and had that coffee shop meeting, a few weeks ago, um, there was a lot of reflection on how 2022 went, and some things we did well, some things we didn't do well, and then we set some goals that literally, guys, they have check-ins 20, what's today, the third, 28 days from now, right?
Hmm.
Like some of our goals have check-ins less than a month from now, and those are critical, right? Like you can't put something out there and say I'm going to do this and then not check in on yourself 6 months from now.
Hmm.
um it needs to be much more recent. You need to have little check-ins along the way to make sure you're making progress. Otherwise you end up like like my daughter, and hey, I'm going to give her a break, she's 14, but you end up like that, and it's like, hey, I want to learn to play the piano. Well, hey, and here comes July, where are you going to get lessons? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need a check-in. You got to keep yourself accountable, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people out there. I mean, it was it was a jab in my post, but there's a lot of people out there that say, I want to do something. Like, I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to lose weight. I want to buy more real estate. I want to make more passive income. It's like, okay, but how? Right? There's no steps. There's no achievable steps along the way to measure your success. And you have to start with the end in mind. So if you can start with the end in mind, it helps you work backwards and figuring out where you need to be at different points along the way in order to get there. So, one thing I wanted to point out for those that don't know what a SMART goal, SMART, the acronym stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And we did this exact show. It was actually January 4th last year. We did it because it fell on a Tuesday, January 4th. But we did this exact show, and we're going to do this exact show every first week of the year. And we're going to remind people what SMART goals are because, yeah, I could say, hey, I want to go buy $1 billion in assets, but like that's not achievable for me at this point in my life. It's not relevant because I don't own $500 million of real estate already, and it's not time bound. So how am I going to be able to set check marks and know that I can go out and buy $250 million, in the next, every quarter? Like, you see how it's not really an achievable goal because it's just so far beyond. Now, there's value in pushing yourself and stretching yourself. And I'll give you an example of one of our stretch goals, which might seem insignificant to some people, but it's a lot for us. And there's no one here to judge. And it's just simply putting out information and understanding where you stand and what your personal goals are, and having an understanding of what you achieve as your own level of success is important, and not to compare yourself to what other people are doing or what other people have done, but measuring it for yourself along the way, because otherwise you're always, what's that saying? It's like comparison is the thief of all joy. Right. So if you start comparing yourself to other people's goals and things like that, like don't do that, right? Because their
Right.
path is their path and your path is your path. So, all right. So I guess we'll start. We'll just kind of go through some of the goals that we have. Oh, Anthony Peters says, oh, I like this. Identify your purpose, method, and end state, then plan backwards. I love that. Thank you. That's a really good mindset going into setting goals and having clarity around what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. All right. So we kind of, the way that Tim and I did some of our goals this year, we separated it kind of into a couple different buckets. We have our Making Moves bucket, which is our Facebook group, our Discord channel, our coaching course and mentorship and all that kind of stuff. Then we have a piece of software that we're working on that I'm not going to go into too much detail on that because I don't really want to talk about it too much yet. And then I put it into real estate related things. And then I have my own personal goals, like for my weight and how am I going to achieve those, and like spending more time with my wife and all that kind of stuff. I think it's important that you have all different goals for whatever you're trying to work on, whether it's just your business or your personal or multiple businesses, whatever. Each one of them needs to have its own goals.
Yeah.
All right. So for making moves, what we want to do is, and we have, this is a SMART goal because it's specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's relevant, and it's time bound. So our first goal for making moves is we want to create all of our video content coursework and complete it by January 31st. That is a SMART goal. Like it does, like don't overcomplicate it. Like that is a goal. And hey, even when Tim and I were sitting down and we're going through these different things, it was like, we had to ask each other, okay, what are we going to achieve and by when? And how are we going to do that? Right. And then, so another thing that we have is instead of doing a cohort setup, we're going to move into a rolling enrollment for our coursework and our mentorship, because it's going to make a little bit more fluidity in our business and to make things a little better. And we'll be able to help more people ultimately, because we started with the end goal in mind, and our end goal was to help more people. So how are we going to do that? And it's going to be by restructuring what we're doing, and we're pivoting in order to make a bigger impact on more people.
Yeah.
So,
and guys, sorry, Tim, but one thing you don't see that goes into this stuff too, right, is like that goal comes from last year, right? We set a goal to do this. And as we accomplished that, we started to realize, hey, there's some things about this that do work. There's some things about this that don't work. Let's also go get feedback from people. So we went to a coach. We went to some other people with experience in the area, had conversations with them, and those conversations are feeding the goals Tim's talking about here.
yep.
So that's why you see some of these adjustments, right? As we're moving forward into 2023.
Hey, your mic's crackling again. I don't know
Okay.
why.
Let me work on that.
All right. So then we have a stretch goal of we want to impact 100 students in 2023. Last year we had 32, and that was a great impact because my goal, actually I can flip it here on this paper here. My goal, my goal for last year was to do 50 students, and we did 32. So that's a win in my book, right? I didn't meet the 50, but hey, now we're going to push it to 100. And if we can hit 75 or 80, then we accomplished that goal, right? So we're going to continually stretch ourselves and push ourselves. And we had to pivot the business plan. We had to pivot how we're doing things in order to make a bigger impact. And the last thing that we want to do for the Making Moves thing is we want to host another mastermind event. We loved that event, and we had so much feedback. People loved it. They said it was life-changing. Hell, I came out of there with like pivotal things in my business that I'm changing from that event. And maybe a Porsche is in my future. I don't know, but that's not what I'm talking about. Talking about changing. But yeah, so we want to do another event potentially in September or October of 2023. And we're going to keep it small. We're going to keep it an annual thing. We want to make it so that it's inclusive, and it's small, so it's also exclusive, right? Because we want to make it so it's, because we want to make it so that, you want to pay to be in the room because it's impactful. And the best of the best people are going to be there. And we successfully did that on our first try, and we're going to try to go above and beyond and do it again next year or I guess this year. Sorry, it is 2023 now. Oh, look at that. Mike Wingard, man. Mike Wingard, he hosts some really great events. I know he's doing one in Chattanooga in February. He also does one in Moab, Utah, which is a real blast. They do like rock climbing and stuff. And I was actually a speaker at his one in Hilton Head that we did, which was like a fishing trip. So Mike Wingard, if you don't know who he is, you need to reach out to him and make a relationship with Mike Wingard for sure.
And hey, Mike, if you're going back to Moab, I want to know about it. I'm in.
I wouldn't be surprised if all the tickets are sold out already. But he does that in like a September or something. All right. So that's it for Making Moves. And so, like, guys, we didn't kill ourselves with a million goals for a business, right? We were very specific. We know what our end goals are, and we're going to be working towards accomplishing these goals. Oh, Moab in March. Oh, are you doing it twice this year? Anyway, I don't want to get distracted, but yes, I want to go to that one too. So I might do that one just because it looks so badass. So Yeah, we set a handful of goals and we're going to work on achieving those goals. So whenever we're trying to make decisions, we look at our goal sheet and we say, "Hey, does this align with getting me closer to my goal? Yes or no? Yes, do it. No, don't do it." And that's how, at least in my world, how I avoid the shiny object syndrome.
Yeah, really, Tim, really good point. Especially with the shiny object syndrome, because guys, that's one of the biggest things that I think goals help with. Because I'm awful about it. I got to be honest, guys. Like I'm fully transparent here. I am so bad about shiny object. Um, and the goals are the biggest thing that keep me focused on what we're trying to accomplish. And I think Tim will tell you, I mean, how many times have I called you and been like, "Hey man, I heard about this and let's go check this out," or whatever. And at the same time, you got to be like, "No, that's not what we said. We're looking at these things over here, and here's a goal that's coming up, and how are you tracking towards that?" And then immediately kind of pulls your focus back where you need to be, right? Because it's real easy to go do things ad hoc and without a roadmap or some check-ins in place, and then next thing you know, what do you have? You've got a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and the business you built is a complete mess.
That
So
is a great roadmap to being busy all the time and accomplishing nothing.
yeah, absolutely. And hey guys, like part of I think Tim's starting to get there, but part of our goal in 2023 is work smarter, work less, and what did we say? More fun, less drama, right?
Fun, less
Um,
drama. Yeah.
yeah, and
And
that's our
I
I
have a
think that's our
theme. I took this from GoBundance. So Tim Vest and I were both in GoBundance, and I kind of stole this from GoBundance. But my theme for 2023 is balance. And the key word is balance. Because last year, Tim and I, we found ourselves literally working around the clock, 12, 14, 15, 16-hour days, Saturdays, Sundays. Like I lost sight of why I started to do this business because I was so enamored with accomplishing more and doing more and doing more and doing more. And I quickly found out that if I don't have balance in my life, I'm going to burn myself out. And I'm only 32 years old. I got another 50 years to continue to grow my wealth. I don't need to accomplish it all in 12 months. So
yeah.
it's creating balance of having a life and having a work life as well. Work life balance is going to be incredibly important for me. So most of my decisions are going to come to, does this help me with the balance in my life? Yes or no?
Yeah, and Tim, I want to kind of hone in on that for a second because guys, like I like during that conversation Tim and I were having, we started the conversation with kind of a level set of like, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? What's going on? How's your wife feel about you right now? Him and me talking about that kind of thing. And what that led to was here's things that we did this year that I didn't like, right? Like,
Mhm.
and how do we adjust for that? How do we get to a point where it's like, okay, hey, at 5 o'clock or at 4 o'clock or at 3 o'clock, whatever, you want to go for a bike ride on the beach with your wife? That how do we accomplish that? How do we set goals that get you there, right? And and it all comes back to having that conversation and being honest about, hey, here's the things that we did that I liked, here's the things that we did that I didn't like. And for me, as we were starting to have that conversation, I was we had a crazy last half of 2022,
Crazy.
absolutely nuts. And I'm a lot like Tim in that I will work and work and work and work. And and sometimes I don't realize that I'm running myself into the ground. And by the end of 2022, I was probably pretty grumpy and pretty irritable and just saying, "Man, I'm working way too much, way too hard." And so part of our, conversation was, all right, how do we remedy that? And what does 2023 look like so that you can, you know, take off at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and go do something you want to do? Because hey, let's be honest, guys, like I didn't leave the W-2 world to be clocking in and clocking out.
Right.
Um, you know, I didn't leave the W-2 world to be lazy, but I did leave the W-2 world in order to own my own time and work when I want to work.
Mhm.
Not work less, not work, but work when I want to work,
Work
you know?
smarter. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. All right. So for the piece of software that we have, I'm just going to be very high level here because I don't really want to give away anything until it's this point. But we wanted to have a MVP or minimum viable product by January 31st. There's a line in the sand there. Like that is a drop dead date. We have to have our MVP up and running by January 31st. We talked about some different subscription levels to have access to this software. We talked about target pricing and things like that when we want to implement that. And then the last thing is we wanted to hire somebody to help run that business by March 31st. And that's all I'm really going to say. So stay tuned for when we come out with this stuff, because we want you guys all to be impacted and blown away by what we're doing. And we've been working on it since last summer. So January 31st, we want to hit December, but some things happened and whatever. So January 31st, we're going to get it done. We'll have this software out.
Wait a minute. Are you saying that you adjust your goals as you go?
Oh, maybe, it does seem to be sometimes a moving target. Life happens as you would. So, hey, whenever you have to pivot, you have to readjust. But I didn't lose sight of having this completed.
Oh,
It just of when it is going to be completed.
there you go. There you go. Love that.
Right. Good. Nice catch. All right. And real estate related, Tim and I, we have something that we're working on. So we set a deadline to close that by a certain date. Obviously, I can't say too much about that because of regulatory reasons. So we'll just leave that there. In addition to that, what we want to do is acquire an additional 3 multifamily property syndications in the Carolinas for 2023. So that is 1 a quarter. And we didn't really set like a door count, or we didn't set a dollar amount count. What we had set as our parameters for buying these multifamily properties were, are we paying for in-place cash flow, right? Or are we getting some type of seller financing? That's the only way I'm going to buy property in 2023, is if we're paying for in-place cash flow. I'm not playing this pro forma game anymore, right? Because the market's changing. It's a buyer's market. There's going to be a lot of debt that's expiring and people need to get out. Well, I'm not going to pay for some other syndicator's mistakes that says, oh, well, you could get the property here. No, you got it to here, and that's what I'm going to pay for. So we're buying on in-place actuals. That's very critical for me. If they don't want to sell it at in-place cash flows, I can pay you more if we have some seller financing aspects to it. But obviously, you've seen other posts that I've done about how we're making offers. I just used Tim Brotz's model. That's his LOI template. That's why I didn't send it to anybody, because it's not mine to send. But I just use his template. I make multiple offers. We got in-place cash flow. We got seller financing options 2 and 3. Obviously, it depends on the deal itself. Anything you want to comment on that, Tim?
Yeah, I was going to say, so this goes back to to what I said a few minutes ago. Is like, this is where Tim and I work well together, right?
Crack one again.
Because let me do something here I'll make this quick. Better. Yeah. So this is where Tim and I work well together, and here's a key to some of these goals, guys, is that what Tim just said, in place cash flow, those clear guidelines on what we're going to buy, that's going to help me a ton, because Tim's going to keep me to that and hold me to it. And when I bring him a deal to look at, he's going to say, hey, does it meet these 2 things that we said we were going to do in 2023? Because, guys, like, I'm incredible at walking on a property and seeing 50 different ways to make it work, right? But that may not be something that meets our goal. That may not be where we are today. So that's where I come back and I talk to Tim about it, and he'll go, hey, hold up. Does it do these 2 things? No. Okay. Well, then we're not looking at it. Right.
Yep.
And that's what partners do. They keep each other focused. And that's what these goals are going to do, is we both sat down and we agreed to this, and it's going to be something that kind of guides us as we move through 2023.
I think what you just touched on right there answers Kyle Barnes' question of, how do your goals reflect your desired balance? And it's that piece right there of, does it meet these requirements? Yes or no? If no, then we don't do it. And before, we were able to be more creative with deal structuring. We were able to push the envelope a little bit. We were able to really think outside of the box in order to buy property. And we were very, very successful at it. And the properties are doing well and we love it, but it's a ton of work. So how do we reduce the amount of work? and have more balance in our life, we're just going to do better deals. How do we do better deals? Our better deals requirement are we paying for in-place cash flow, and or is there some type of seller financing incorporated that makes this deal more attractive, right? Those are those things that are going to help us achieve that desired balance in our lives of not working around the clock all the time. And I know, Kyle Barnes, one of the metrics that you like to look at is profit per door after it's been renovated. And that's something that I'm kind of incorporating into our analysis as well, with, especially with my own like personal acquisitions and things like that. But, on the syndication side of things, or even JVs or whatever, we're making sure that it meets those criteria in order to give us the balance that we're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. And Tim, I think one of the things that's kind of key is, some folks will look at this and go, yeah, but when you're first starting out, you can't be that selective. And maybe I don't disagree with that necessarily. When you are first starting out, right, that you may have to say, you know what, over this 18-month period, I'm going to work 17-hour days because that's what it's going to take, right? And it's just, but it's having a clear vision of the 6, the 12, the 18, the 24 months and what that looks like. And to say, hey, if I do this today, 18 months from now, 24 months from now, I can have a completely different focus. You know, over the last 2 years, Tim and I have grinded and we worked our tails off. And that has been beneficial to us to the point now where we can be more selective. We are able to say, hey, you know what? We got these other things going on. They're producing, they're taking care of us. And now we can be a little more selective.
Yep. Yeah, we don't have to do a deal, right?
Right.
And there's a lot of value, and thank you for pointing that out, because it is very good perspective of, we're at a different point in our careers now than where we were 2 years ago. And
Right.
I don't know if a lot of you guys remember, but I say it all the time, is the goal of leaving my W-2 job and selling my house and downsizing into an apartment and selling everything that I owned was so that I can put my head down and work around the clock for at least 12 months in order to build my business and create my foundation. Well, that was successful. I did that. Now it's time to, now I'm trying to remember what it was like to not work around the clock anymore. And it's very difficult to turn that faucet off. Once you turn that faucet on,
Yeah.
it's very easy to stay in that consistent motion of working all of the time. And it's funny, I actually made a joke with my wife, I guess maybe last week or something like that. And I was just like, I had shut off the computer at 5 o'clock, and I was like, wow, this is what it was like when I had a W-2 job, wasn't it? It's just like I shut the computer and I walk away. It was like, I forgot what that felt like. I forgot what it felt like not to be looking at my phone and answering emails at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, because in the W-2 world, they'll be there tomorrow. And hey, guys, newsflash, in the entrepreneurial world, they'll be there tomorrow as well. And it's hard to kind of turn that faucet off, and you want to be answering people right away, and you want to look at every single deal as soon as it comes up. And like, there's a point in time in your career where you have to do that, but now we're trying to tone that back a little bit, so we're far more selective on what we're doing and when we're doing it.
Yeah. And Tim, I'm glad you said that, because you mentioned that at the beginning of this. I took some time, went up to New York City with my family. I tried to make the conscious decision of, while I was there, like unplugging, like getting away from work, unplugging, taking the 4 or 5 or 6 days or whatever, and just being present with them. Guys, it was really, really hard. It was extremely difficult. I kept finding myself with downtime going, oh, let me just log on and look at this. Let me grab my phone and check this email. Let me respond to this. It was really, really difficult not to do those things, because over the last 2 years, I've just conditioned myself to be doing
Right.
that all the time. And it's kind of funny. Like, we talk about, like, make yourself uncomfortable. Well, I was uncomfortable.
Hmm.
And it made me realize I need to figure this out again, right? I need to
Yeah.
figure out how to unplug and recharge. And I know it sounds simple, like, man, I'd love to go sit on the beach for a week, but sometimes when your head's not accustomed to that, it's really, really
Yeah.
tough to get back to it.
And I think the small win there is, how do you create the separation between work and, non-work activities? And
Yeah.
that was the first thing for me that changed, where I had to draw a clear line in the sand, say, that's it, enough is enough, and I'll handle this tomorrow, because that's tomorrow's problem. And getting back to that, point in where you could just do it. Like, I mean, when I first started my career, in my finance and accounting world, I'd work till 5:30, sometimes 6 o'clock, but then I'd go home and I'd do whatever I want. And I didn't think about work at all. And there's so much value there in being able to turn it off, not even just unplug and recharge for a week at a time, but being able to turn it off and have your own personal time. Because we as humans were not designed to work around the clock, right? That's
Yes.
not in our biology. It's not our genetics. We're social beings. We want to have community and involvement and fun. And if you don't instill those things into your life, those principles into your life, then you'll spiral downhill pretty quickly.
Yeah, and hey, I want to go back because I know we're running out of time, but I want to go back and mention one thing that kind of Kyle calls out here because I had a couple of conversations at the end of the year with some people that I mentor, some people that mentor me, and one of the conversations that came up with somebody was, there's he was always like, I'm going after $1 billion, I'm going after $1 billion, right? And over the course of a couple of conversations, it kind of came out. He was like, I don't know that I care about $1 billion.
Yep.
He's like, he has two young kids, and he's like, I've been going after that. I'm doing really well, and he's doing really really well. But he's like, I kind of want to. I'm missing time with my kids. What good's $1 billion if I turn around and my kids are 20 years old and I've missed I missed them growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So he had a moment where he was like, I've done really well. I've been horribly successful. Maybe I want to rethink this goal.
Yeah.
Right. And that's okay, guys. Like as you go down the path, you are going to pivot. You're going to see things where you're like, I thought I wanted this, but it's taken so much away from me that I don't think I do anymore. And that's okay. Don't look at that as failure, right? Look at that as I learned something.
Yeah.
I realized what was important to me, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's powerful. Yeah. Very powerful. All right. So I know we're running up on time, so we'll just quickly go through the last two things. So we'd like to acquire 4 triple net value add properties in the Carolinas. Syndications or JVs are acceptable. And lastly, we want a successful refinance or sale of 5 different properties that have action items on them for 2023. I won't list those property names, but we want to make sure that those are successful. We've identified the properties that need a refinance. We need to make sure that we're hitting our business plans, which we've been talking about now for months, hitting refinances, in 2023. So it's the discussions of, do we refinance? Do we sell it? Like, what do we do with the opportunity that we have? So,
yeah. Those are some darn good goals, if I must say so myself.
Hey, man, I think I think we did a pretty good job. I'll say so myself.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Well, thanks for tuning in. I hope that you guys got some clarity from our goals to help you with your own goals, and go out there, crush 2023, set boundaries, have a balanced life, have your 30, 60, 90-day goal check marks, reevaluate and pivot. Don't be afraid to change things as you learn and you grow and your goals change, whether they're in your personal or professional life. There's no right or wrong answer here. Just the biggest thing that I would say is, don't compare yourselves to other people. Go out there and achieve what you define as to be successful. As soon as you be happy with the goals that you're achieving, you will find a better balance in your entire life, because you're happy with the growth that you've seen and the work that you've put in to get there. So, all right.
Can't say it any better than that. Happy New Year's, everybody.
All right. See y'all later.
See ya.